Okay, let's begin. We are on Aleph Vav, Klal 1, Principle 1, Law 6. Continue from yesterday. Afilu imhu roe, she'imhu yargil atzmo b'mida hazo shelo l'saper le'olam b'gnusu shel Yisrael, u'kedomim mediburim ha'asurim, yisoviv l'hefsid gadol, b'inyin parnasaso. Let's say, if the fact that you're not speaking Lashon Harah, good afternoon, if you're not speaking Lashon Harah will cause you a great loss. How so? You work for somebody else, other people. They are people that don't have any semblance of observing the Torah. We know in our great sins that people, these types of people that don't follow the Torah, they are very careless in speaking Lashon Harah. That they're so engrossed. They're so engrossed in Lashon Harah that if they're sitting in a group and they don't see somebody speaking Lashon Harah with them, they think he's a fool. Meaning, why is this guy not speaking Lashon Harah when we're all speaking Lashon Harah? So they're going to say he must be an idiot or he's a fool. And because of this, they're going to think he's a fool. He's going to get fired from his job, and he won't be able to support his family. So what is the law? Perhaps one could argue that the one is not required to lose his job when it comes to speaking Lashon Harah, right? This could come up very often. If a boss asks you if your boss straight up asks you, can you tell me about this, your fellow Jewish worker here? Tell me something negative about him, whatever he wants to know. And if you don't tell him, he's going to fire you. Perhaps one doesn't have to give up his job, right? He makes $200,000 a year, and his boss asks him to speak Lashon Harah. Does he have to give up his job? Or this case isn't even exactly that case. This case is just he doesn't participate in this group of people that sit and speak Lashon Harah together, and he's going to get fired if he doesn't do it. Let's say he's making $500,000 a year. Does he have to give up his job? So says the Chavetz Chaim, Afal Pikain, Aser. Nevertheless, it's forbidden, even though he's going to lose his job, it's forbidden to speak Lashon Harah. Like every other negative prohibition in the Torah, one has to give up all of his possessions. And to not violate them, like we say in Yoredeah, number 157, Sif Aleph, Behagav, Ayin Shem, and the Ramasi there. So there's a general principle that for somebody, if you have an option to violate a negative prohibition in the Torah or to give up all your money, you have to give up all of your money, right? If the choice is to give up all of your money, all of your wealth that you spent your whole entire life accumulating, or to eat a piece of non-kosher food, then you have to give up all of your wealth. Now, if someone says, eat this piece of non-kosher food or I'm going to kill you, then you eat the piece of non-kosher food, right? There's a difference between giving up your money and giving up your life. Now, there are only 3 sins that a person has to give up his life for. That's idolatry, certain forbidden relationships, and murder. But when it comes to all of the other commandments, one doesn't have to give up his life. However, he does have to give up all of his money. When it comes to a negative prohibition in the Torah, meaning the 365 negative prohibitions where the Torah says don't do something, then one has to give up all of his money. Now, when it comes to fulfilling a positive commandment, one only has to give up 1/5 of his money. So let's say matzah would be very scarce, and you have to pay $10,000 to get some matzah for Pesach, and that's less than 1/5 of all of your money. Then you would have to spend $10,000 to get matzah. But if it comes to the point in this case where the choice is giving up your job or speaking Lashon Harah, or hanging out with people that speak Lashon Harah and listening to them and joining with them and speaking the Lashon Harah, then the halacha is that one has to give up his job. For those who have this Chalkas Binyamin edition, there's a lot to talk about what about just for those who have studied this topic about a lav she'ein bo ma'isa, if one has to give up all of his money for that, and why Lashon Harah is not a lav she'ein bo ma'isa. Okay, number 7. Umizen nu holeda de kol shechein im nogea lo rak bekavod ba'alma. From this we could learn that even if it's something which just applies to his honor, his kavod, right? You're sitting amongst a group of people. You have no choice. You can't run away for whatever reason. You're stuck there. You're on a plane. And they're speaking evil speech, things that are prohibited. And when you sit there and you don't participate, you don't say anything, they're going to think you're a weirdo. They're going to think you're a meshuggah if you just sit there and you don't participate in their evil speech. So bevadai de aser, for sure it's prohibited, right? If in a case where you're going to lose your job, you're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara, of course, when you're sitting around just a group of people and they're going to think you look like a fool for not participating in their Lashon Hara and in their gossip, of course, in that case, it is prohibited to participate in their evil speech. And similarly, the rabbis have stated, Mutav la'adam sheyikar shaita kol yamav v'al yerasha sha'achas lifnei hamakom. He says it is better that a person be called a fool his entire life than appear evil in the eyes of God for one moment. So this happens to us, right? Very often, there's always peer pressure to violate what the Torah says. We might be overt pressure or just societal pressure subliminally, but the idea is we always have to keep what the Torah says. It's better that the entire world looks at you like a moron, looks at you like a fool, than to be evil in the eyes of God. So very often this happens. We want to be one of the guys or the women, we want to be part of the group, and everyone's speaking Lashon Hara, and you want to throw in your 2 cents. So maybe get a laugh at somebody else's expense or say something negative so people like you. That is totally prohibited, and we should think to ourselves that it is better to be a fool one's entire life than to be a rasha, an evil person in front of God for one moment. At that time when one's pressured to do something forbidden, to speak Lashon Hara in the group, he should strengthen himself with all of his might. The reward for not speaking Lashon Hara in this situation is not measurable. Like the rabbis say, according to the difficulty is the reward. When someone overcomes a test and it's very hard, and he does the right thing, the reward that he gets is according to the effort which he put in. It says also, when somebody fulfills a commandment or doesn't do a prohibition in the Torah and it's very painful, it's very hard for him, he gets 100 times more reward than if it would be easy. So speaking Lashon Hara in those situations, when you're at a wedding or something or at a gathering and you want to join in and speak Lashon Hara, speak evil speech, and not doing it, and it's very difficult, a person gets 100 times more reward than if it was easy. And this applies for every mitzvah. This year, it's very hard to keep some of the mitzvahs, especially for Pesach that's coming up. It's very painful. Some people are tempted to, want to join a Zoom Seder when it's Yontiv, and we shouldn't be doing that. It's very difficult to have a Seder by oneself. Not going to lie, it's very hard. But the reward that one gets for fulfilling what the Torah has to say and doing the right thing in these difficult circumstances, the reward is 100 times greater than if it would be easy. And at a time like this, when we fulfill a mitzvah, even when it's hard, the rabbi said, "B'midrash kol rega v'rega she'adam chaysim piv zaychel or haganuz she'en kol malach uberi yachol l'shayir." Every moment that a person is quiet and doesn't speak Lashon Hara at this time that it's very difficult, he merits to get a hidden light that even every angel can't understand, doesn't get it. Now, what do you do practically if you're find yourself in this evil group? Because we're going to talk about later in chapter 6 exactly how to handle this situation. But for sure, not to speak Lashon Hara. I think Ramat Yisrael Solomon says, sometimes, right, we don't always pass the test. Sometimes we do speak the Lashon Hara in the group, but we should think that every moment that we don't, let's say you're sitting at a table and everyone's speaking Lashon Hara and you're keeping your mouth shut for an hour and you just can't, hold it in anymore. You have a really juicy piece of gossip you want to share, so you share it. So we shouldn't be totally, depressed that we failed the test, because look at it. For an hour you kept your mouth shut and didn't say anything. The fact that you kept your mouth shut for that long is a tremendous accomplishment, and a person gets a reward for the amount of time when he overcame the test. That's what we have to remember. People often think that Judaism is all or nothing, right? We should know what the ultimate goal is, what we're trying to accomplish, but every little bit that we do is worth something and God loves. But we should also remember the tremendous reward for not speaking Lashon Hara, especially in times of great difficulty. Okay, Ches, number 8. Iser zeh shel Lashon Hara hu bein im hu mesaper alav befiv mamish o shehu kosev alav davar zev mechtavo. the prohibition of evil speech is whether it's actually spoken or whether it's written, right? Don't think that Lashon Hara, evil speech, is only when someone says it. He says the words. Even if you write something which is evil about somebody else, that is also on the prohibition of Lashon Hara. V'gam ein bo chilek. Okay, fine. So just to think, that applies definitely on the internet, on Facebook. We have to be very careful if what we are writing is not violating the laws of Lashon Hara. And I just heard, for anyone interested, I could send them this lecture I heard from Rav Eli Ber Wachvogel, who is the Rosh Hashiva of South Fallsburg in New York State. And he's also the uncle of our very own Rabbi Burstein here in Manalp. And he wrote that, it used to be 100 years ago, if you spoke Lashon Hara, it would get around to people, and it would get around to people in the town, and it usually just stopped there to the people in the immediate vicinity. It was very bad because, people in the immediate town could, cause damage to this person. But nowadays, you write something online, and in half a second, it has a potential to be all around the world in every corner of the earth. So the potential for evil is much greater nowadays, and also the potential for good is much greater in that respect. Okay, continues the Chavetz Chaim. V'gam ein bo chilek bein im hu mesaper alav lashon hara shelo beferish ubein im hu mesaper alav lashon hara b'derech remez b'chal gavnim b'chal lashon hara. And it doesn't matter whether you explicitly say the lashon hara or if you just hint to the lashon hara. We mentioned before, if someone says something negative about someone else and you nod or you smile, that falls into the prohibition of lashon hara. Okay, 9. Tes. V'da'od da'afilu im betoch hagnus she'igana es chaveru gina es atzmo gam kem es hagnus gufa v'afilu hiktim lehisraim al atzmo b'zeh afilu hachim b'chaldi l'tur lo nafke. Some people think if that they say a negative story about somebody else, and included in the negative story about somebody else, they also include themselves, that's fine. Wrong. That's totally prohibited. Even if you start by saying negative things about yourself, and you continue and say something negative about somebody else, that is also Lashon Hara. Just because you're denigrating yourself in the same story doesn't mean that it's okay. Okay, so we finished the first chapter of Lashon Hara, and God willing, tomorrow we will continue with the second chapter of Sefer Chavetz Chaim. Thank you to everyone who joined.